Marijuana laws have been legalized in many states, and an unasked question is coming to the table. Are these laws even legal? Spoiler, there aren't. This is Andrew, reporting for Rawka Media, and today we are discussing the legality of marijuana laws. Hopefully this has come to some people's minds as they took a U.S. history class or a basic introduction to the U.S. government in high school. It would make sense why this isn't legal. Since our government is based off a federal system, the federal government is stronger than the state government. And since the DEA, a federal law enforcement agency, has put marijuana as a Schedule 1 drug, alright? We're gonna stop right there and explain what in the world is a Schedule 1 drug. Simple. The DEA categorizes all drugs into 5 categories. Schedule 1, the worst, or the worst in their eyes, I should say, like heroin and marijuana, to Schedule 5, your common everyday drug. This will usually be over-the-counter cold medicines. Now, each tier, or in this case a schedule, has its own set of laws attached to it. A Schedule 1 drug is flat out illegal. If you get caught with it, it's game over. Well then, a state says it's okay to use marijuana, but the feds say it's not. A problem arises. The long-time debate of state versus federal governments. And it really doesn't work out well for the states. We're going to take a look at 2 major Supreme Court cases in the early years of our country. These Supreme Court cases established the precedent federal government is superior to the state government. The first one we're going to look is McClellan versus Maryland. For some context, the Constitution era of our country, about the late 1700s to the early 1800s, the Bank of the United States was established, under Hamilton, that whole deal, and it had branches all over the states. Well, Maryland thought it would be a good idea to tax the bank, which I remind you, it is ran by the federal government. The bank went to the Supreme Court with Maryland, and a verdict was made. The Marshall Court established that the federal government cannot be taxed by the state governments, hence expanding the power of the federal government and making the federal government stronger than the state governments. Now, the next Supreme Court case is Ogden v. Gibbons. For some context, New York and New Jersey both lie on the Hudson River, and during this time they both created different commerce regulations. This caused 2 monopolies to emerge from each state, and they were both fighting over who had the right to the river. Now, they took it to the Supreme Court, and again, under the Marshall Court, they established a verdict. This made a new precedent that only the federal government, in this case the Congress, has the ability to regulate commerce. Thus, it made the federal government more powerful than the states. All of these verdicts of the Supreme Court cases were justified under the Supremacy in Commerce Clause of the Constitution. Now, for some context, the Supremacy Clause, as you may have imagined, it basically states that the federal government is superior to the state government, and the Commerce Clause, it's basically saying the same thing except that feds regulate commerce with. Now, I can't forget the most important occurrence when a state government, or I should say governments, went against the federal government. Now, it wasn't a Supreme Court case this time, but it was a war, the Civil War. And we all know how that ended up. The federal government won. Now, to recap, marijuana laws are still illegal even though some states legalize them. Alright? So, those are facts. Now, we're going to do some speculation on what's going to happen with these laws. And to be quite honest, nothing is really going to happen to these laws. They are probably just going to stay there. First of all, the DEA, if the DEA decide to go all ham and go in and confiscate all the marijuana and arrest literally a ton of people, that would not only waste a ton of money initially, it would waste money for putting those people in prison, most likely federal prison, since the states have legalized it, it would be more of a federal offense, and all hell would break loose within the federal government. And probably, if it would happen within the next 4 years, the Trump administration would get absolutely demolished. They're already on the edge. This would only seal their fate. So what is probably going to happen is the federal government is going to just turn a blind eye like they have been until the DEA decides to legalize marijuana on a national level. Though DEA legalizing marijuana might take some time, you know how long anything takes in the world of bureaucracy. We just need a more younger crew to push the change. Or no, just blackmail your congressperson for change. Well, that's it. To recap, marijuana laws are still illegal and the federal government is going to turn a blind eye to this until it gets legalized on a national level. This is Andrew, reporting for Rawka Media. Make sure to like, share, subscribe, and have a good day.